Welcome to my Week 11 NFL Power Rankings. To get things started, here is a recap from Week 10. This week's buys include the Indianapolis Colts, the Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints, and the New England Patriots. None of these teams will be considered for the top 10 rankings this week. Before we get to my top 10, I have just your average 2023 quarterback with the Cincinnati Bengals. This season, 6 starting quarterbacks have been put down to season-ending injuries. If you don't include Tyrod Taylor, that said his rib injury will not be the end of his season. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow is the latest addition to this list, with his throwing hand being injured, specifically a middle tendon that allows him to flex his hand back and forth like so. Can't exactly throw a football if you can't spiral it. Look, football used to be a lot more rough and injury riddled 20 years ago. It's a lot safer now. That's just a fact. It used to be expectation that quarterbacks would miss 4+ games a season, and now that's more of an oddity. Well, except for this season. This season, quarterbacks really do feel like they're just dropping like flies. But unfortunately, that's football, and that's where the injury wheel decided to land this season. Now, while I'm highly doubtful that Jake Browning will lead the Bengals to the playoffs, even if he has weapons like Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon, I'm happy to be proven wrong. It always makes for a good story and for good football. Bengals, you most likely will not see another top 10 appearance this season. The fall and rise and fall again, evidently, of the Bengals has fully commenced. But don't fret, Bengals fans. For better or for worse, for win or loss, Jake Browning will always be riding with the dogs. At number 10, I have the Cleveland Browns. Contrary to what I said last week, the Browns have managed to just barely stay top 10 worthy. Their 5th-round rookie pick from UCLA, Dorian Thomas Robinson, or DTR from now on, because that's just as much of a mouthful as Michael Humanawanawe. Sorry, 8 syllables is just too much for it to roll off the tongue easily. But despite all odds, the Browns still eked out a very ugly win against the Steelers. But if you know AFC North football, that's just a standard game in their division. In the final drive, you can hear all the Browns fans in the stadium just chanting DTR, DTR, and that somehow summoned something deep within inside of him to come out and just make an amazing final drive to win them the game. It was like watching Yugi use his Millennium Puzzle to turn into Yagi. It was quite the spectacle. And with recent acquisition of former Raven and Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco, the Browns should be able to keep up momentum this season, even if their 5-year, $230 million certified woman respecter is out for the season. And at number 9, I have the Houston Texans. The Texans neither rose nor fell this week. Them beating the Cardinals that basically have to find themselves again due to Kyler Murray recently coming back wasn't all that impressive. If anything, CJ Stroud looked more like a standard rookie quarterback this week, which is fine because he is still a rookie quarterback. He made some rookie mistakes, most of which led to interceptions that could have cost him the game. But I will still stand by calling him the best rookie quarterback of all time. He's only shown us a fraction of what he can do, and even the best have bad games sometimes. The reason the Texans are still on this list here is not because of Stroud anymore. And that's refreshing to see the Texans win in spite of Stroud struggling a little bit. The defense really stepped up and managed to make all the mistakes on the offense manageable, and they were able to persevere and break through and win the game. Teams that aren't solely reliant on just one player to win them week to week are what make a top 10 team, and that is the Texans. At number 8, you have the Denver Broncos. Yes, you heard that right. The Broncos seriously made my list this week in a non-joking fashion. Even after feeding them the carrot to satiate their hunger, they still came after the Vikings wanting more. And no, I don't care that a team that isn't currently 500 plus right now is in my top 10s, which honestly might be surprising considering at some points in this game the Broncos looked more uncoordinated than the Office trying to take a Christmas photo together.
Not everyone jumped.
Okay, everybody jump in the air this time, please. Here we go.
Cortland Sutton must have sold his soul to some sort of deity to get magical sticky hands. Sometime in the fourth quarter, around 2 minutes left in the game, Sutton had caught a ball where he had absolutely no business catching it. He did it with one hand, all while tripping over a receiver. And this was for an important first down that, I would argue saved them the game. Russell Wilson is showing enough flashes of his old self to help elevate this team without hindering it too much by being a weathered quarterback. And the Broncos' pass defense is looking quite mighty compared to what it was earlier in the season. This midseason surge has turned the Broncos from who were previously the laughingstock of the NFL to a team that's beating big names and winning very close games. They may not have the highest winning streak in the NFL right now, which is the Chiefs with 6 games in a row, who the Broncos did put an end to, but they do have the current highest active winning streak at 4 games in a row. You know, for all the shit Seahawks fans have given the Broncos in the past for, the Super Bowl blowout or the Russell Wilson acquisition, I really hope the Broncos keep it up to shut those Seahawks fans up. It's been annoying for too long, and I'm not even a Broncos fan. And now at number 7, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Here is my completely unbiased take on the Dallas Cowboys.
And Hooters is catering. Is that enough? Is that enough? Should I keep going?
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way. I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
Now, you move down a spot on the list from 6 to 7. Cowboys fans, you may be asking, what happened? We destroyed the Panthers in a spectacular fashion, too. And I'll be frank, that's partially the problem. 3 elite teams have come back off their bye season, being the Dolphins, the Chiefs, and the Eagles, which means naturally some teams get moved down the list or even off the list entirely. Unfortunately, the Cowboys are remaining on the list this week, only being shifted down a little bit. Now, Cowboys fans, do you genuinely believe you deserve up higher on this list? Because if you say yeah, you're crazy. Seriously, look at the caliber of teams that you've played this season. The Jets, the Giants twice, the Patriots, the Chargers, the Panthers, and the Rams. Those are your 7 wins. Not who you just played, but your 7 wins. Are any of those teams at all impressive? The closest, I would say, is probably the Rams, but they're even struggling. They're not even a .500 team this season. So, what have you done that's meaningful? Nothing. I'll tell you, actually, you know what? I will tell you what you've done that's meaningful. You lost to the 49ers in a very, very horrible game. You got blown out. It was just as bad as watching you guys blow out my Giants. It really was horrible. And you also lost to the Eagles, which I will give you credit. You really gave them the run for their money. That was a very close game that could have seriously went either way. But still, you lost and you did not bring home the money. Both of those .500 teams you lost to. No other .500 team this season has played against you. So how can you expect me to put you any higher on this list when all you're doing is dominating in games that you should be dominating in, other than that Cardinals game in week 2? The only reason you're even on this list still is because I believe Miami is a way better team that's also having the similar issue of not being able to beat .500 teams. Sorry, not sorry. Also, I want to end this off by saying your guys' logo is way overrated. It's seriously just a star.
I mean, it's alright. Like, overrated as fuck, in my opinion. I mean,
And at number 6, we have the San Francisco 49ers. And man, is this team quite saucy.
You wear boxers, briefs, or pantaloons?
Oh, well, you're very saucy.
They were back last week, and they were continuing their dominance this week. They beat the Baker Mayfield-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but let's all be honest, that win was not that impressive. The Buccaneers have been a fairly mid team this season, with more upsides than downsides, but still mid regardless. This is one of the games where the 49ers were expected to win, and because that they did, they, for the most part, stay in the spot that they had last week, with the exception of being moved down a bit because of the 3 elite teams coming off their bye week. I really don't have all that much to say about this team. Brock Purdy is looking like he did before his win streak was broken. Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk complement to each other so well that if one of them is missing, the 49ers suddenly have a wide receiver problem. But when they're both together on the field, they're running through defensive backfields like a red hot ball of metal going through an ice cube. George Kittle is still a great blocker, as he's always been, and he's been getting more receptions lately, so he's being productive with those too. And obviously, CMC is still the top dog in the league. Best running back easily. 49ers have a playoff spot clinched, and it's no contest. They're winning their division. At number 5, you have the Baltimore Ravens. Yikes. The team that could do it all, and the closest team to me thinking, oh yeah, 100% Super Bowl bound, got hit with the classics. Mark Andrews is out for the season, and that's quite a large blow to the Ravens' offense. Being one of Lamar's favorite and most efficient pass catchers, the Ravens have a lot of work to do to reconfigure this offense to work without him on the field. And while I have no doubts that they will be able to get the job done, their offense will noticeably take a hit to production, unfortunately. However, Lamar Jackson still has his amazing ability to scramble and run at a moment's notice. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman are coming around this season, even if they were looking to be week by week wide receivers. And we cannot forget to mention Keenan Mitchell and Gus the Bus Edwards, the amazing and dominant running back duo out of Baltimore that are just freight training and steamrolling everybody they come across. It is spectacular. It is fun to watch, but from here on out, it could be a bumpy ride all the way up to the playoffs. At number 4, we have the Miami Dolphins. Miami's running back Devon Achane is back, and then he got taken out just as fast as the Quickster can run to a mountain and back.
To that mountain and back? You want to see me do it again?
Someone fell on his knee mid-game, the same injured knee that put him on the IR, and Mike McDaniels decided to take him out of the game. Which, good for you. That was absolutely the right move. And look, I'll be honest, without Devon Achane in the game, the offense for Miami looked a little middling, even if it was still a high-powered offense. I think this was mostly due to the fact that Tyreek Hill was a little bit banged up and excellently covered. And after this week, the Dolphin slander could be finally put to rest. They beat a .500 team, or at least the team was .500 coming into the game. And what team may that be? Wait. The Raiders were .500 coming into the week? I guess they were on a bit of a hot streak after firing Josh McDaniels and replacing him with Antonio Pierce, but that's still kind of surprising. You know what? Good on you guys. All right. While beating the Raiders doesn't sound all that impressive, they still have like a top 15 defense, which is formidable. They have been sacking quarterbacks and putting pressure on offenses left and right this season, and even more so now that Antonio Pierce has taken up the helm. So props to the Dolphins O-line for keeping the Raiders D-line at bay for the most part. Enough about the Raiders, though. This is the Dolphin spot on my top 10 list, not the Raiders spot. And yes, I will start this off with a very hot take based off of no facts whatsoever and just gut feelings. Tua Tagovailoa is the best quarterback in the league right now. Better than 2023's Mahomes, who is just mid compared to what he was last year. But his mid is still dominant compared to most other quarterbacks. So I don't want to get that confused. Jalen Hurts. Tua's better than Jalen Hurts. Tua is better than Dak Prescott, and Tua is certainly better than Josh the Interception King Allen. There's no contest who is the best quarterback right now in the league, and that is Tua. And not to jock his cock too much, so let's point out some glaring flaws in Tua's play. It seems like whenever he gets sacked, he has a tendency to fumble the balls. 8 fumbles out of 15 sacks is not a statistic you want to be a part of. Sorry for hitting my mic there. And unfortunately, it seems like it was an issue last year with 6 fumbles before Tua was taken out of the season. So he just needs to give his soul to whatever entity that Cortland Sutton did, because he needs some of them sticky hands. And even if Tua doesn't have the sticky hands and fumbles the ball, it doesn't matter as long as he doesn't get hit, because he can throw a rocket to his main wide receiver, Tyreek Hill. Even while banged up, Tyreek can put up a monstrous game, and currently is the only wide receiver right now that is projected to have 2,000 receiving yards by the end of the season. And it's only week 11. He's at 1,222. He has 6 games to go in the regular season and whatever many playoff games Miami finds themselves in. If I was a betting man, which I really am not for the most part, I would put money on Tyreek Hill getting 2,000 yards. And thankfully, to help out Tyreek Hill reach the 2,000 receiving yards, the Dolphins have a fairly easy rest of season schedule with only 2, maybe 3 potential games that could be, tough ones. That it would be against the Cowboys, which, as much shit as I give the Cowboys, their defense is still easily a top 5 defense that just keeps teams away from the goal line. The Ravens, which we've already gone into the Ravens, and I don't want to count them, especially after this half of the season, but some people still, especially their fans, the Bills. So make that how you will, but I think Tyreek Hill has a very good shot of reaching 2,000 receiving yards this season. At number 3, I have the Detroit Lions. And yes, while the Lions did almost lose to the Chicago Bears.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
And while, yes, that would warrant most other teams to fall down a little bit on this list, the Lions aren't going nowhere because this is my fully biased and slightly unhinged power ranking. So, yes, the Lions are maintaining, number 3 on this list, for better or for worse. Yeah, Jared Goff may have thrown 3 interceptions, but that is far from normal. That is very uncharacteristic for him. Do you know what's in character for him that he still managed to do, even though he threw 3 interceptions? He throws 200 yards plus every single game without fail. Look it up. Not a single game has gone by that Jared Goff hasn't thrown 200 yards. And that's quite impressive considering most quarterbacks have one or even multiple games throwing under 200 yards. For better or for worse, even when, the Lions were getting beat down by the Ravens, guess who was there throwing dimes? Jared Goff. I might be out of line when I say this, but I don't care. Jared Goff is quite literally a top 5 NFL quarterback right now. His ability to get the ball to Sam Laporta or the Sun God himself is unrivaled. His consistency is currently unrivaled, and this game that they just played is just a little bit of a bump in the road. It's an off week for him, which every quarterback has. At number 2, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. A bit of history was made because the Eagles won their rematch against the Chiefs in a staggering comeback. And the fact that the Eagles won isn't what made history. It's the fact that the Chiefs' current streak of winning games directly after their bye week has been broken. They have never, since Mahomes has been here, they have never lost a game directly after bye week, except for this week. Good work, Eagles. You may have broke a streak that was a bit meaningless, but it's a streak nonetheless. The Chiefs' offense is clearly struggling due to the lack of wide receiver talent. What? I'm a Giants fan. You think I'm going to praise Kadarius Toney at all? Hell no. He is not that good. And look, he makes some big plays here and there, but the majority of the time, guess what he's doing? He's doing nothing. Rashee Rice, I will give him a lot more props for his more consistent behavior as a wide receiver. However, he is still a rookie and definitely not a Puka Nacua. So while he is more of a mid wide receiver, he is on a high powered offense, which automatically elevates him and gives him a better chance to break out and become better than most other wide receivers. And you think, with the lack of wide receivers, Travis Kelce would be there to make up for it. But it really seems whenever Taylor Swift is not in attendance, Travis Kelce is nowhere to be found and just doesn't really get much done. Very strange. I think someone legitimately should do some research into this Taylor Swift theory. It's kind of just as weird as Madden Curse, in my opinion. I will say there are 2 shining pieces to this Kansas City offense. And the first one is obviously Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes, even if he's not playing to the standards he set for himself in the previous years. his his current standard that he's setting for this year is still a top 3 quarterback, but he's definitely not number 1 anymore, unfortunately. He's been very fun to watch, however, even if most people really hate the Chiefs for, being good. And their other shining piece to this offense is Isaiah Pacheco, who is just turning on the engines whenever he can, and he Beyblades down the field with all his spinning maneuvers. It's quite fun to see, and whenever he's, juke spins someone and breaks their ankles, it's always, a laughing moment, in my opinion. And the Chiefs' defense continues to be a top 3 defense week in and week out. Their defense is what is keeping them in these games. Their defense is basically the safety net for their offense when their offense starts to struggle sometimes. Let's be real. The Chiefs were just this close of winning the game. The Eagles didn't get the better of them. They didn't get the better of themselves. It was the weather, and I will stand by that. And that's okay. That happens sometimes in football. To give a little context, this whole entire game was played in wet and windy weather. You could even see like the little water droplets on the cameras. That's how, bad it was. This leads to an environment where players are more likely to be dropping balls that are normally catchable. They're going to be intercepting, throwing interceptions more. They're going to be fumbling the ball more. It's just what happens in these kind of weather conditions, and anything's on the table, really. Now, to get into what happened, it's fourth quarter. The Chiefs are down by 4, so they need a touchdown. There's a minute 40 left on the clock, roughly, and they're on, I believe, their own 40. So they have a long way to go still. What happens is Patrick Mahomes delivers a rocket straight to MVS for 60 plus yards. It landed straight in his hands. Such a catchable pass on a normal sunny day with no rain. What happens, I'm sure you can guess, is MVS drops the ball, or more like it slips out of his hands because it's slick. That's just what happens with a football when it gets wet. So it drops out of his hands, his feet slip out from under him, and the play is dead on arrival, unfortunately for him. He could have caught what is normally a go-ahead touchdown pass, but, the weather did not allow him to do so. And I can't even blame him. I won't blame him for it. It happens. And unfortunate, it happened on the last play that really would have cemented their win. The Chiefs put up a valiant fight against the Eagles, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, they could not bring the win home. They lost 21-17. The Eagles won the rematch this time around. And as much as I probably should not be saying this, because I don't want another Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl, and I don't think anybody else wants another Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl, but Chiefs, maybe you will win the rematch next time around. The rematch. Yeah. Yeah. And at our number 1 spot, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, as much as I hate the Cowboys, I really don't have the same seething hatred towards the Eagles. I am salty that I lost this fantasy week because DeAndre Swift decided to pop off for my opponent, but my dislike towards the Eagles is a mild disdain at worst. I just don't like them because they're good, which is a common reason not to like or football teams. Jalen Hurts did not play that well, at least in the first half, where he was sacked 6 different times. And this entire game, it looked like he had no idea who A.J. Brown even was. Only 1 reception to him for 8 yards, which is, look, I get that he was double to even triple coverage this whole game, but sometimes you just gotta pick a guy and let it fly. A.J. Brown makes magic happen. You gotta trust him to catch those balls in double coverage sometimes, because guess what? He's one of those receivers that will do just that. And, while A.J. Brown may have not gotten a bunch of love this week, 2 other cool cats most certainly did, and that is DeAndre Swift and Devontae Smith, who had a combined total of 206 yards together, which is quite impressive for just 2 guys. And they are the reason why the Eagles are number 1 this week, and the reason why they won the rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs. So congratulations, Eagles, you're number 1 this week. And as is a bit of tradition around here already, we do not just end with the last pick at number 1. No, we have another category here right after the top 10. And that this week is Alexander and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, who are the Washington Commanders. This poor team has had such a horrible day Sunday. Not only did they get beat by Tommy the Italian Stallion DeVito, who I'm now calling Tommy the Italian Stallion DeHero, to add insult to injury, the Commanders couldn't even take a hot shower after the game because the water was out in FedEx Field. Murphy's Law hit the Commanders well and hard. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. You'd think that after trading Chase Young and Montez Sweat, that your defensive line would just be terrible, but you would be overestimating the Giants O-line, who is the worst in the league. While the Commanders still did sack Tommy DeHero 9 times, it doesn't matter. They still allowed Tommy DeHero throw 3 touchdowns for 246 yards on only 18 completions out of 26 attempts. Those are some hero stats from a third string quarterback that basically went undrafted and just sits on his mama's couch, which no disrespect there. Living with your parents is quite respectable. And for the team that gave the Eagles a run for their money not just once, but twice this season, it's a pitiful performance you put up against the Giants. The only real takeaway I have for this game against the New York Jersey Football Giants is Tommy DeHero might just steal away Rookie of the Year from CJ Stroud. Yeah, no, he's not. I don't know how to turn that into a joke, but I just sent it. He's not stealing the Rookie of the Year, but him having 5 touchdowns within his first 2 starts as a Giant will go down in franchise history. So even though this year is a bunch of bullocks, he is making history for this franchise, no matter how you put it. So hell yeah, Tommy DeVito, you got sauce in your veins, and your mama is proud. And that wraps up my Week 11 NFL Power Rankings. Thank you very much for joining me again this week, and I will see you next week.